today we have here Bret Fisher. He is the Docker god for me. He is from
Little G.
he is from Virginia, and please follow him everywhere. And check his courses. We'll talk about that. I want to talk about Docker for at least 2 hours today. So let's see.
2 hours nonstop, pure Docker.
Yeah. So how are you? How are you, Brett? Finally.
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show. We've been chatting on social media together for a while now. You reached out last year. You've been killing it on Twitter and doing a lot of these interviews, and I've watched some of them, and it's just I love other IT people getting out there and basically collaborating with other people to help educate. That's what my whole career has been about, is helping people, whether I'm in a team, whether I'm actually teaching, but I'm always trying to help people, whether or not the job is about helping people. So that's why I got into IT, because I love helping people. I started at desktop support, just like helping people fix their desktops 30 years ago almost. And it and a lot of us get started that way, right? Like we're fixing things all the time, and we decide to make a career out of it. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad you're doing the same thing. So
I really like what you say, fixing things. So you don't even know what you fix, but you fix something every day. There is always something to fix every day.
That's a great T-shirt. That's a great T-shirt. Fix something every day, like just a general life advice.
Well, this call is already worth. So So please introduce a little bit to yourself for who maybe still don't know you, maybe if they don't know Docker, because I'm working so hard for this, and maybe it was destiny that today I've done my very first live stream with Docker, and then I have this video call with you. So please let's talk about a little bit about yourself. Really want to
streaming your learning is a thing, and I'm a huge fan of it. I definitely should do more of it, because for all the courses that I teach, and we can talk about that in a minute, but for all the courses I teach, and then for all the consulting that I've done and all the work that I do in IT, there's always, a huge part of it is learning. Every day we are learning how something works, because it doesn't work anymore, and now we have to figure out how it works. And so that's how I learned to do my courses. So much of the stuff that I teach other people, I didn't read a book about it. I learned it by troubleshooting it. It broke on me. And so, my career has been everything from, I started out in the US military in the 90s. And then I went to a small consulting company. Then I worked for a big consulting company. Then I worked for a local government city. I helped run the city IT, the whole data center and all that. And then just kept, moving to different jobs. And then about a decade ago, I decided to start just going full-time consulting on my own. So since then, I have, 3 or 4 projects a year. So I get to see a lot more stuff. I get to see, big IT, little IT, startups, companies that are in tech, companies that have nothing to do with tech, but they've got servers, so they have to do something. And so I got a wide range of experience in that time. And like 2004, I started hearing all this buzz about Docker. Not 2004, sorry, 2014. I started hearing all this buzz about Docker. Yeah, and so everybody was talking about Docker, and I'm an ops person, so a lot of people think I'm a developer, and I can write some software, but I never had a formal training in software development. I was always, hacking together solutions ever since HTML was invented. My job is ops. My job is really to run the servers, to help the data center, to, basically take code from the developers and make it and put it in front of customers, essentially. So Docker came out, and I instantly loved it. I thought, okay, this is huge. Solves so many problems. Let's talk about it. So I started telling my friends. I started using it in all my clients. And around 2006 was when the Docker Captain stuff started happening. So Docker has this program for volunteers that if you talk about Docker enough, they give you a certain title. And they have these titles like Community Leader and Docker Captain. And they started handing these out. And I got to be one of those first people that did that. And around that same time, I was making courses. And at the time, I was making Windows courses like Hyper-V and other courses on Windows Server. And those didn't really do well. And Docker and Udemy both reached out and asked me if I would make a course on Docker. So that was a big, huge undertaking. It took about 4 months full time. I didn't do any client work, lived off of savings just to make a course. I didn't make any money on my clients. And spent 4 months making that course, launched it in 2017, and now it's got over 200,000 students in 187 countries.
And I was one of them because I started with Docker with your course. I can say this because there is a lot of free stuff, but I really loved your Docker course. It helped me so much. I'm not here just promoting you, but it's true because it helped me because I started by studying Docker by myself. Without even needing that, I was a developer for the European Space Agency. We didn't even use the Docker 3 years ago. And then one year ago, we started using Docker. And I was and 2 years ago, I was one of the people who says, let's use Docker. I was one of them. Maybe you can understand what I say. Yeah, and this helped me so much. So you are saying that your courses has been hard. Your very first course has really been hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's the concept. Honestly, to me, it reminds me of virtualization. So, some people are getting into IT and they're new enough that they have always had virtualization. But for those of us that were around in 2003, 2004 timeframe, right when VMware was taking off, Microsoft was creating their thing called Virtual Server. And virtualization was a really hard concept to understand. Yeah. And we were sitting in rooms telling people, oh no, you're going to run an operating system inside an operating system, and it's going to pretend like fake hardware. And everyone was just confused. Like, why would you do this? How would this not suck? Like, this is going to ruin everything. Everything will be slow. It'll be complicated. And so of course, some of that was true. And over time, we solved those problems. But now, the same thing is happening with containers, where containers are this total mind shift of how you package software, how you ship it, and then how you run it. And when I first understood it, and it took a while, because the first couple of projects, I didn't really get what I was doing. I was trying to use it, and I was trying to apply my old knowledge to it, and it wasn't working well. And that's because I was doing it wrong, right? I was trying to put like a whole Linux box inside of a container, and that wasn't working. And I was trying to run like Ubuntu in the background, just an Ubuntu server, and I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't run, right? Like some of these basic problems that everybody has to go through. It's like a natural part of that learning process. So. Don't feel bad. Like I was the same person who was like, I think my first project, I actually quit Docker. I think I tried it. I couldn't get it to do what I wanted because it didn't do that. And I didn't understand it. So I just quit. And then I came back like 3 months later, and finally it sort of sunk in the brain.
I'm happy about that because you came back because maybe in the beginning, maybe it's hard to get the idea, to grasp the concepts in the beginning. I'm trying to work on there to helping people maybe to understand the first concepts. And today I got some questions like how can I upload an image inside a container? So there is a little bit of confusion sometimes in the beginning. So and let's talk about thank you Bret, of course. Let's talk about all the courses that you have, because I have all of them. So can we talk about the other stuff, because also I'm a fan of Node. So I'm studying Kubernetes. So can we talk about that also? If you publish that those courses maybe after, if it has been easier for you to create, maybe you have had already something prepared already. I've also seen an improvement in the video quality also, maybe something green screen, something like that.
Okay, so the first answer there, BretFisher.com. That's BRET1TFISHER.com. That's where you can get the courses, the coupons. There's 4 of them. I wish there was more, but I'm not great at pumping out these courses. I'm very particular, and I don't like just dumping out content for the sake of content, and so I've learned a lot because I have competition on the internet, right? Because there's tons of people making courses, and there are some people that put out a course every month. I can imagine you being one of those amazing people that you put out so much good stuff that you could probably churn out good content like that. I'm not like that, unfortunately, and I'm always doing a bunch of different things. So I'm always consulting as well as doing like YouTube lives, and so I can never do just one thing, which is part of my problem. But there's 4 courses there. There's Docker Mastery, there's Swarm Mastery, which is basically it's taking Docker and putting it on multiple servers. And it's the simple solution. Then there's Kubernetes Mastery, which is taking the world by storm, much like Docker. And that one is my newest course. And then there's this little course. It's not so little, but it's the one that not so many people have taken, called Docker for Node.js. And yeah, and I also cut my teeth on Node.js probably a decade ago at this point. When Node.js was brand new, and it was like, oh man, this is amazing. I can now take my web scripting and use it on the back end. It was a new idea. We really didn't have any solid solution for that. And I can use one programming language on the front and the back. And NPM was a brand new thing that we didn't really have a package manager for the web at the time. And so NPM was such a new thing. So I've always had an affinity for Node. Of course, now there's all this new stuff we have, like Golang and Rust and all these cool things and a lot of them have learned on top of Node. I might argue that Node took the learnings from PHP and Ruby and made things a little bit better, especially when it came to packages. So there's this little course called Docker for Node.js. You can find them all on my website. The coupons there range from $10 a course, American dollars, to about $20 a course, depending on what Udemy sale they're currently having. Or you could just go find them on Udemy. But yeah, so those 4 courses live there. We're working on the 5th course. I already have a co-instructor for that course. We're working on the content, and it's going to be more generic DevOps focused. We don't have a name yet, but that's a course that we hopefully are going to launch this year in 2021.
That's great. And I love your Node courses. I've bought your Kubernetes on day one because I was about to learn Kubernetes, and it was, I think, maybe a Black Friday, something like that. I can't remember the exact day, but I remember that I was about to start learning Kubernetes, and your course popped out, and I was like, yes. And I bought that, as I've seen that, because I really love your way of teaching, let's say this, because as you say, there could be a lot of people that can try to teach something. It's not that easy, but maybe, I don't know, your style, maybe, it's very friendly. It's serious but friendly. I really like that. Really. So,
I'm always trying to imagine I'm talking to like a good friend, right? Like this is a conversation I'm having, even though the camera's not talking back to me. Exactly. And I'm always trying to, so I definitely, I am not someone who reads like a teleprompter. I will end up re-recording 3 times, which isn't the best, but I will record and then edit that down into like the best sort of shortened version of that, because I've always enjoyed having conversations about technology, and so I kind of want the videos to be like that.
I've bought a teleprompter and I've never used that for now, because I like more the idea to maybe to try to explain. Maybe I like to improve when I teach, maybe every time. For example, today I tried to explain with my own words. Maybe they are not perfect, but I really like as you say, the concept of being friendly, like talking to a friend when you try to explain something. Both of my parents are teachers, so maybe I have some teaching in my DNA. So I really like I really like this idea to teach people, like, to try to let them to understand something that is difficult for them. So we were talking about if your last courses has been easier for you, or maybe more difficult because maybe there is more content about them.
So I can imagine that courses are a lot like YouTube videos, right? So if you're someone who makes just content anywhere, whether it's a blog post or a video or a course, I mean, a course is probably the hardest because you have to plan it all up front. and then you can't really release it until you have a lot of it, right? Whereas a YouTube video, you could have an idea on Monday and then have the video out on Friday. And I'm someone who I have a hard time making courses because I like doing little things one at a like I like small objectives and small things. I hate 6-month projects, right? Like things that you don't get to release or do or show anyone for 6 months. You worked for 6 months with no, so that's hard for me. But yes, definitely, I think making the courses has gotten a lot easier. It's one of my huge things. I love tools. So if you could see my office, it's actually quite simple. Because I'm always trying to reduce complexity. It's very much like I do IT. I don't like complicated solutions. I don't like complicated tools. It's one of the reasons why I think early on I was a big fan of Swarm and was really downplaying Kubernetes, because I was kind of hoping Swarm would get more usage and more love by the community because it was so much simpler. And I know that we're all super busy, so nobody has any free time anymore to learn new things. So we need simple tools to solve problems. Anyway, so I would say that every course I've done, I think I have used completely different tools and workflow for each course, because we learn so much. And I think the first course I was using Camtasia, and I was using a webcam, and I think I had a different microphone. And I learned so much making Docker Mastery. I learned that sometimes you can actually record on the wrong microphone and not realize it. And then you have this whole video you have to re-record because it's on the wrong microphone. It's like using the laptop microphone or something. I made all the mistakes. And then I think by the second course or third course, I was using Mac specific tools. I think I was using ScreenFlow, which is a Mac tool for recording. I find it a little bit better than Camtasia. We were editing out raw camera video out of this Canon. Actually, the camera you're seeing now, which is a full Canon DSLR camera instead of a webcam. I was using a higher end microphone. It actually cuts out more background noise. I have some actually guides and links to all the tools that I use. So I can send those to you so we can have those in this video so that people can find all that stuff. But I think at some point I decided I was going to do Final Cut Pro or some really advanced video editor, and we tried that, but everything got so hard, like so complicated. And I've done amateur video editing for decades now. I think I started in like 2000 with Acid Pro and some of these other old school tools. But everything's too hard, and I have a team that helps me, and they're not video editing professionals, so I didn't want to teach them Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro or something. So we actually have gone the complete opposite direction, and now we're looking at like the easiest web-based tools. Like, what web-based tools can we use where we can all collaborate, make videos together, and work on the content, edit the videos, and then publish them all on the internet without having to worry about copying over 5 gig video files from one computer to another, and all these. When you're working in a distributed team, especially now with COVID, everything's remote, everyone's remote, and we're having to pass stuff back and forwards. It's really important to me that things are as simple as we can make them. And so sometimes we're probably going to end up sacrificing quality or special effects, or the color might not just be super right, or the audio might not be super perfect. But I have that level of tolerance where, like, okay, it's good enough. Like, this is good enough. It's better than most things. It's more interesting than most videos. Let's ship it. Let's just do it. It's not perfect, but let's get it out there for people. And I do sometimes get feedback from people that they wish it was more perfect. There's this music's too loud. Your audio's not, something's not right. You whatever. You said the word 15 times in 2 seconds or something.
Good. Yeah. I understand this kind of comments. I really can't really agree with them, because I don't know. Maybe they've never done a video. I don't know. Or maybe they have just a bad day. I don't know. But if it's constructive criticism, it can be good. But sometimes it's just I don't know if they want just to feel you bad or not. But as you say,
living on the internet. I was going to say, living on the internet, you have to have some thick skin. Whether you're if you're just on social media nowadays, we've all learned that you can't take anything personally, because for everything you do, there's a critic in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is, I think, yeah, thank you. I think this is one of the things that stopped me for not making videos for many, many years. Now, as you said, maybe I thicker skin, and maybe, yeah, I try to do something. I try to improve. I listen to everyone, but I keep going. So, yeah,
Yeah.
as you said, yeah, you need to be like that. If you want to create content, you need to be prepared to this. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
And I've been real lucky. I mean, honestly, I feel like my audience is amazing. So many smart people. Because just today I was going through, I get messages from some students, right? And like I'll get emails, and I'd say like 90%, 95% of them are thank yous. They're just people saying, you helped my career. I got a new job. I got into DevOps when I wasn't in DevOps or whatever because of your courses, or we weren't using Docker at work and now we're using Docker. I'm so excited,
yeah,
and I took your course. I've had people that got jobs and moved to new countries because they took my courses. Obviously, they had to do the work, right? So I don't take too much credit, but that kind of encouragement is what keeps me going, right? Like that's
exactly.
those messages, people sending an email to my inbox and saying, "Hey, I've got a quick
Yeah.
question, but also, did you know I've changed my career, because of your courses or whatever?" And I just that stuff, man. Whenever someone gives me a really bad review or really hates on my stuff, or and nothing positive, just all negative, like I want my money back, it's horrible. Like
Oh,
all I have to do is just go read all those reviews, and then I feel better.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't feel bad about that. And I am one of them. So I have one of those people that you really change their lives, so you can say. Because, for example, I was not that into DevOps things before, and after your courses, yeah, I really switched my mind. Now I talk about Docker. I think that some people that they know about me on Docker on Twitter also. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
because I talk about that basically every day. Yeah,
yep.
yeah. So yeah. So thank you so much for this.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about live streaming? Because I seen that you had I don't know how many episodes, but I think hundreds
Yeah,
of
yeah,
episodes on Thursday. Yeah, I follow that. It's like my television. So sometimes I watch that because I don't have a television in my house, but sometimes I watch this kind of episode. So can you talk about that? Your guests,
yeah.
how you have organized that? Yeah.
I mean, there's something about live, right? Like, there's something about watching a train wreck. Because live TV. I mean, so we all grew up without YouTube. I mean,
Yeah.
eventually we're going to be able to. We're not going to have people that we can say that to. They're going to be, the kids these days. YouTube's been out over 13 years now. So I guess 13 years of I've always had YouTube. But the only live I had growing up was the news and the Jerry Lewis telethon, which is a thing that we had in the U.S. Who
Mhm.
this comedian Jerry Lewis would do this telethon every year for, I think it was like 24 or 72 hours straight or something. I think
Okay.
it was a couple of days, and it was all day, all night on TV every year. And
Oh,
it was a fundraising telethon. And I was glued to that thing because it was, they would make little mistakes. Like the comedians
exactly.
would, they would bring out a comedian and they would have a comedian. Then they'd go to the phones and they would go to the phone bank and they'd watch, they'd have callers on live on TV. And it was so exciting to watch something happening live. Well, now we have
Yeah.
live everywhere all the time, right? So I
Mm.
think like 3 years ago, I loved the idea of live. Twitch was, getting really popular, and
Mhm.
I liked Twitch and I liked YouTube, but we didn't have all these cool tools today where we can, like, StreamYard and Restream and all that, where we can go to multiple places at the same time. So I just started streaming on YouTube because that's where I hung out. I mean, I watch videos on YouTube every day. YouTube is my TV essentially. I'm always learning something, whether it's it could be something about music. It could be, I've have a background in music. I actually thought my career was going to be in music before I got into tech. So I'm always learning something there. And I decided I just would start live streaming just once a week. And I did it for the students. So every day I get questions, maybe 30 to 50 questions a day from the students in our courses. We get tons of questions. So I have a team that helps me. Hey, Ivor, I've got people that help me with the questions in the courses. And I thought, well, what if I just did a live show every week and then students could show up while they're taking courses, and they could ask me questions, and I would answer them live right there about the course. And I just started doing that, and it stuck, and we kept doing it. And then eventually, I did like what you're doing here. I started having some guests on, and so today we're over 100 episodes, and we just took a break for Christmas, so I'm getting ready to start that back up this week. It's every Thursday, 1 p.m. U.S. Eastern. So it's just Bret.live, BRET.live. And people can come and ask questions, and sometimes I'll have guests, and then we'll ask the guest questions, right? So that's pretty cool, because sometimes I can get some pretty neat guests in that are very specific to a container topic or a DevOps topic, and we'll just chit chat, and people can ask whatever they want. I mean, we're probably only going to answer questions that are relevant to the conversation, but it is YouTube, so you do get the random questions like, "What did you have for lunch?" But yeah, you know what's cool is I feel like I'm hanging out with my friends. Like to me, it's just we're hanging out, and I've got people that show up every week in chat and YouTube, and it's basically my friend pool of IT people that we're all doing this together. So that's how we do it.
Yeah, that's great. I've been there so many times watching. Sometimes I also did some questions also, but that's really, and as you said, it's really simple. Just two people just talking. You're reading some question. Yeah, and you try to answer. Yeah, and since sometimes you also have put some of the questions and answers inside your courses also, the best ones.
Yeah.
So this also can be an idea also for you. So this is very good also to help other people. Yeah.
Not everybody likes that approach, but so I get some student feedback that it's a little random to them, but it's not as produced as a course. But I mean, when people are asking the same stuff over and over again, I thought, why not put some of these answers in the course themselves, right? So
yeah. This is why you make a video, so at least you can answer to a lot of people at the same time. So you can link videos, maybe instead of just answering one by one, which sometimes it's really impossible. I think that for you it's almost impossible. I don't know. And maybe by getting the same question so many times, by answering one time in one video, it's better. And if that's live, it's even better, in my opinion. Yeah. So
why not? So you're welcome.
Bret.
And we'll have to have you on the show. We're gonna have to have a show with you on it to talk about what it's like to go from like zero to hero. You're sharing so much stuff on the internet, and there are lots of people. There's we all start this way, right? We start blogging, or we're tweeting other people's blog articles, and then eventually you learn how to make videos. All of us that are making content, we started writing first usually, and it's great what you're doing, and I think we need more of it. If there's one good thing that came out of 2020, it's that so many people in DevOps and in the container ecosystem that started doing live streaming and YouTube videos and Twitch streams, and I love it. I mean, some people would say it's competition, but I don't see it that way. I see it as we're creating a community. We're all doing this together. There's so much stuff to talk about that we could all be making videos and still have more to talk about. So I'm excited that there's more people working from home and able to do this stuff in their own little studio in their office wherever they're at.
Exactly.
So thank you for doing this and having all this content. So
thank you. I really love it. I was sure about that. I really love your approach. You're open-minded. So maybe this is also one of the secrets of your success, in my opinion, by being open-minded, open also to collaborations. As you said, it's not really a competition. People are not paying to watch this. So it's really, and so, that will be really great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for this. I am one of those people that were. I had almost 2 hours, 3 hours of commitment per day to go to work, and now I use it using these kind of hours, to create some content. Also to stay a little bit more on socials, and then we'll see in 2021. I have one question for you. What do you think about Docker and also Kubernetes in 2021? I think that you are one of the best person who I can ask this, make this question.
Well, we should probably have a whole show about that where we actually bring on the people that are doing the work, right? But because I'm not the one making the features or releasing the new versions, but I do talk about them a lot. So I think in 2021, I'm going to just guess that we're not going to have anything. I don't expect anything life-changing, right? I don't see us having a new tool that is right now, we know about it, but it's not really that there yet, and we're waiting on it or something. There's going to be some features in Docker that I hope to see the team release that you can actually see on their roadmap. Docker now has a roadmap, so it's not even really secret anymore. You can actually go to GitHub, and under the Docker organization, they have a new repo called Roadmap. And so for those of you that actually care about Docker or Kubernetes, both of these things are living on GitHub. If you're living in open source, you can see the PRs, if you pay attention to that stuff. But largely, I think we just had a brand new release of Docker and the Docker tooling in November and December. Actually, it was in December, I think, when they released it. So we're all still kind of learning that. I think one of the exciting things for those of us that have a Mac in 2021 will be that Docker will release this new Docker desktop that runs on the M1 processor, the ARM processor that now the new Macs are all released with. And one thing that I'm excited about is it's probably not going to happen in 2021, but maybe Windows on ARM, which is a thing right now. We actually do have Windows that can run on ARM, but that ARM itself will become more popular as a choice, not just in the cloud, but also, people buying Macs that are M1s or the new, the M1X or whatever's next for that. And then maybe Windows on ARM will become more popular because it's clear, I think, to those of us that are paying attention to the chipsets, it's clear that ARM has a use case in, everyone's life, especially for those of us that don't need the insane resources that maybe an Intel box could provide you, right? I've always been a fan of small devices like fanless laptops. I was one of those people that bought the Apple MacBook that had no fans because it was this tiny little thing. It was like 12-inch laptop. It was super small, and it was really underpowered, but it was no moving parts. It was a solid state device, just like our phones and iPads and tablets. So I'm very much a fan of us getting to this world where we don't need really, like, I've got a laptop over here and it's making jet engine noises because it's so hot and it's blowing fans. So I'm one of those that's looking forward to smaller, quieter devices that don't burn our laptops, our laps when we sit them on our legs and they're too hot for us. And I think that, as much, whether or not you're an Apple fan, what's going to happen is Apple's going to release more of these products, and it's going to make all of the Windows competing laptops get better. It's going to force them to either run at lower temperatures or, so they have better battery life, or they're going to have to switch to ARM and support Windows ARM. So I'm going to say that probably like 2021 might finally be the year of ARM. As much as those of us that are Raspberry Pi fans, we have the people like Alex Ellis out there.
We have one, yeah.
Yeah. There's a gentleman by the name of Alex Ellis. If anyone wants to learn, Docker on ARM, Kubernetes on ARM, he was one of the early people talking about, since like 2017 or earlier even, talking about ARM devices, Raspberry Pis, and how to get those working with Docker and Kubernetes. And now we have ARM in the data centers. We have ARM servers being released. You can get ARM now in Amazon. And so ARM itself isn't inherently interesting unless we can all save money, save energy. We can run things cheaper. Like, that's what's interesting. It's not so much that ARM itself is that way, but we've all been running on Intel now as for our servers and our laptops for 30 years, I should say is Intel compatible, x86 64. I think that it's time that it's great to have this new competition. So what does that all mean for Docker and Kubernetes? Well, Docker and Kubernetes are now going to probably get more attention on the ARM platforms, which means easier installs, easier supporting, easier maintaining things. And for developers, they're hopefully going to start shipping their software in both compatible formats. So one of the challenges for those of us that want to run ARM on our local machine or on a Raspberry Pi is that not everyone's shipping their Docker software with ARM compatible images. And so those will probably get much more popular in 2021, because now what's going to happen is if you're a developer and you're using Docker on Mac, when you use that, if you buy one of these new machines and you're using the M1 ARM processors, you will default to Docker running ARM code. So it needs an ARM image. Most people don't realize today, if you were to get a Raspberry Pi or or an M1.
When I seen that M1 announcement, the first thing that I thought about, okay, this will be compatible with Docker. What will change about Docker with this? Because it doesn't mean the first thing that I thought about.
And that's a great question. And actually, there's I can't remember the guy's name. There's a gentleman that made a YouTube video that was actually really good. We went through a walkthrough of Docker on M1, Docker desktop preview release, because Docker's now already released the preview of this. And there's actually like bugs with Apple's operating system as well as the programming language Go that's preventing Docker from working perfectly on the ARM M1s right now. But so once all that stuff gets fixed, we'll have like a Docker desktop that actually works on M1. But what's happening in the background is when today, if you were to get a Windows machine and you run Windows containers that most people don't do, but you can, that's actually running a .exe, like a Windows binary, right? So when you do a Docker run node or Docker run Python, and you're on a machine like a Windows server, you by default are not running a Linux image. You're running a Windows image with Windows binaries that are compatible with the Windows kernel. Now, if you were to run that same command on a Linux server, Docker run node or Docker run Python, Docker's smart enough to choose the Linux binaries. And if you were to run on a 32-bit Linux server, which most of us don't have those, but if you did, Docker would look for an image that is 32-bit binaries. And so these are technically separate images, but you're using the same Docker command. And most people have no idea that this magic is happening in the background. And that's known as the manifest. So what we're going to get now with M1s is the M1 machine means that when a developer types Docker run Python on an M1 machine, Docker will then go, oh, this is ARM. I'm going to pull down the ARM image of Python, and it will run it. Now, here's the cool thing about Docker Desktop is that in the background, it has this little feature. It's called QEMU. That's actually an open source Linux tool that allows you to emulate one processor type on another processor type. And we've had that for a long time now. It's not a Docker thing. But Docker came bundled with it. So today, that's how on a Mac, today on a regular Intel Mac, you can run other processor architecture types. So you can run an ARM container image on an Intel Mac. Most people didn't realize they could do that. But you can. And now what's going to be possible on the M1 is you can do the opposite. You're going to be able to run Intel images on an M1 ARM Mac, which, like, if your head isn't hurting at this point.
It sounds great. It sounds really crazy. If you're following this discussion, then this is really crazy.
I need to draw it out. I probably need to make a diagram where I'm just like, this is how this works. Like it's going to be the Mac OS talking to the hypervisor virtualization, talking to Docker's Linux ARM VM, talking to QEMU, which then talks to your Intel-based Docker image. So anyway, the long story there is that hopefully more developers will cross-compile their applications. And they'll have an ARM version and an Intel version, and then we'll all be able to run everything everywhere.
So this will be a year also cross-compiling, so cross-architecture, cross-architecture images. Because I think maybe 3 years ago it was just I don't know, maybe something for fanboys, maybe just watching a little bit on ARM, maybe as you said, something a little bit on a Raspberry Pi. But now, for example, that Apple released this, maybe we are getting into that. So it's time. I think that finally it's time.
Yeah.
It's time for Docker on ARM. So
and people, I mean, obviously, if you're on a Mac now, right? If you are on Mac, like the future is ARM for you. So you're eventually probably going to have to run an ARM machine, whether you want to or not. So Apple, in some ways, is kind of, they're doing it for their own product reasons. But the what's going to end up happening is that developers are all suddenly going to have to care about cross compilation. They're going to have to care about architecture type. When most developers have never had to worry about this in their career. Like for 30 years, they've only built for Intel compatible. The servers have always been Intel compatible. They just They just run a make command or a build command of some sort, and they don't have to care. But now, it's funny because Docker has been one of these companies where for years they have been building all these cross architecture features. So now we have this new thing called buildx that came out like 2+ years ago. And so Docker buildx allows me to build an image at the same time on 2 different architectures. And some programming languages have this, like Golang has this where the compiler can build on multiple architectures at the same time, even if you're not on that architecture. But now Docker has this built-in command line that lets us do this. So I think it's going to be a year of, all the developers that are on Mac are going to start to have to deal with this. And yeah, that's going to, to me, I mean, it's a huge thing. And it's one of those things where most people don't care right now because they don't need a new machine. But eventually, like, this is going to be a tidal wave, right? Slowly growing.
Yeah, maybe in a couple of years, maybe they'll notice that we have different architecture. So thank you for this because I think that this can really be also interesting. Also, to create content about. I don't know if you want to create something about that, but So this will be, as always, a great year. For Docker. Do you want to say something about Kubernetes if you want? 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, sure. Because Kubernetes is affected by this too, right? And so, like, Docker is going to get some new features that are more about the clouds. I didn't mention that, but we saw in 2020 some experimental features on Docker where you can straight from the Docker command line, you can go to AWS's ECS, you can go to Azure's ACI. They're probably going to add more of those this year. So it's going to be easier for small teams and solo developers to just ship their code directly to container platforms in the cloud without ever having to build a server or maintaining a server. Like, that's beautiful. I love that idea. I'm a huge fan of that. On the Kubernetes side, what we're probably going to see is more of what we saw in 2020. We're going to see stabilization, a lot of maturing of the product so that it's a little bit more boring. That's a lot of what we talked about in 2020 was Kubernetes becoming boring so that it's not huge changes. Like we saw in early 2020, Kubernetes 1.18 shipped a complete change to the kube control run command line, and it completely broke my courses. It broke all the commands everybody was using. But I don't expect we'll see as much of that this year. I think another couple of things that are exciting in Kubernetes this year is we're hopefully going to see some experimentation on new ideas on how to deploy to Kubernetes so that developers don't have to maintain so much manifest YAML. We'll probably see the Compose standard. If you're familiar with Docker Compose, that's an easier standard to get started with. It still uses YAML, but it's much more terse. I don't know if that's the right way to say that. It's far fewer lines of YAML, and there's some ideas brewing. I've had multiple people on my show from Rancher to Docker, all talking about how can we make the Compose format easier to use in Kubernetes so that you can maybe even use the Docker command line to ship to Kubernetes instead of having to learn a whole new tool set. I'm hoping that that's going to happen. And that's not maybe going to happen inside the Kubernetes product itself. It's going to be more tooling around the main Kubernetes API and better tooling there. When it comes to the Kubernetes releases, we're going to see less releases because they announced last month that they're going to have 3 a year, I believe now, instead of 4. So we're going to slow that down a little bit so that there's not so much new. And we've got some alpha and beta features that are hopefully going to be released that are going to make it easier for debugging and troubleshooting. So we've got this idea of ephemeral containers. We've got a new debug command. And these things will make it easier for operators like myself, or maybe someone who's not super nerdy on Kubernetes that is wanting to figure out why things are not working. Maybe we're going to have some easier command lines there for them as well. So I think that's there's probably some other stuff going on. We've got some stuff going on in storage world and in the networking world, but they're small little things that I'm not sure the average person will notice as much, because most of us, if we're running Kubernetes correctly, at least in my opinion, you're using a distribution. So you're saying, hey, I'm going to run Rancher, or I'm going to run VMware's Kubernetes, or I'm going to run Docker Enterprise, or the whatever that's renamed to. I can't remember the name now. But yeah, or something like EKS and Amazon or something like that. So I always recommend when they're running it for a business, that they're using someone else's distribution of Kubernetes, because that's way easier than trying to build it by hand yourself. It's already complicated enough. Why make it harder on yourself? Unless you're just learning or it's a hobby, that's fine. But I think for real businesses that are worried about proper security, all that kind of stuff that's sort of certified and guaranteed by a company that's backing it with support, a paid support plan kind of thing, I think it's the right thing to do as a distribution. So those are going to keep you all safe. And not outside the lines of support or a best practice installation. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much, because I really really needed to by listening to this answer from you. Maybe this can be really useful for this year, because we need, as you said, we always need to stay updated on this kind of stuff. Also, if you create content, as you said, you also need to update your courses. Is something bad? Because otherwise people
and for those fans out there of my courses, by the way, those courses do need all those updates. So that is our immediate agenda this year in 2021, is to focus on those and get some updates out. We've got from the Kubernetes new releases to the brand new Docker release, the new features with WSL2 for those that are on Windows 10. Like, there's so much stuff that's happened in the last 6 months that we're definitely going to be updating those videos.
And I can confirm this, because I had this course from, I don't know, some years now, and I noticed that they do sometimes you had some whole new sections, a lot of other videos. So this is a lot of work to do if you want to create something really valuable for developers and for people that are watching your courses. So I really can't. Maybe I can't really understand the struggle yet, because I don't have my own course, my own resources now. But so thank you for doing this, of course.
That is one of the hardest things too. Like, when you love new technology and you love new tools that make our lives easier, but you also want this thing to be evergreen, which is the term we use for making sure that it lasts forever. Because Docker's not going away. Kubernetes isn't going away anytime soon. These are tools that we'll still be talking about in 5 or 10 years, probably. And I think that it's one of the hardest things is to make, for example, an assignment or a demo that still functions the same way, just even in 3 years. Like, it's hard. That's probably one of the hardest things to do in the courses. I've learned so much over the years about what not to do. Don't depend on someone else's code, because in 3 years they may have changed it. And so I do try to pin versions, making sure that I can control when things change in the course, or when my demos change, or when the examples change. So I fork a lot of code for my trainings, because so much of Docker has changed just in the last year. There's been probably 3 or 4 things that have broken in Kubernetes, and 3 or 4 things that have broken in Docker, just because of various changes in the ecosystem. And they're not always huge things, but when you're taking people step by step through every command and every little line, that can change.
A little change. Sometimes maybe you can add just a little text, but sometimes it's not enough for some, maybe.
And that's what we do cheat. We do cheat like that. We put in little boxes that say, "Oh, this is broken. You might want to change it."
Don't do this. Because I don't want to record again. But I can understand, because sometimes it's really just a different command, maybe a different letter in a command. And sometimes also I've seen sometimes maybe also on the images that you use, maybe I've seen something on Nginx, maybe you use maybe some feature to show the people, and they change that. So you need to say, okay,
a year
this doesn't work anymore.
I have like all the war stories, right? Like a year ago, the Postgres image, the official Postgres image, on a patch release, not a minor or major release, but on a patch release of the image, and this was a big controversy in the community because they shouldn't have done this, I think. But on a very small patch release, they changed Postgres image to require a password. And at least I think it was a patch release. I may be getting this wrong, so apologies to the Postgres team if I'm not correct on this. But on a small release, they changed it so that it would not start unless you had a password. But for the last 6 years, it's never required a password. Now, we can all agree that needing a password's a great security requirement, but surprising it on people with without there being a major thing in the README or a major warning that the next release, like warning, this is coming, this is going to break your stuff. So it broke all my courses instantly. Like the day it came out, all my students were like, "Hey, none of these are working anymore," and it was all because we were doing simple little demos, and I didn't want to. A lot of times in training, you don't want to bog people down with details that you are not focusing on in the moment, right? You're like, okay, we're learning the Docker run command. We're not so much focused on enterprise Postgres best practices for production, right? So you show them a simple command, and then suddenly that command doesn't work because it doesn't have a password in it, and then you realize, oh, now I have to teach them how to do environment variables in Docker, and I need to teach them how an entry point script. Like, it's all this new things I have to teach them. So yeah, it can be super challenging, but that's honestly, I feel like that's part of the fun of it. Students are always coming back and saying, "Hey, this isn't working. That's not working." And so I will often take the student feedback, and I'll highlight it in new FAQs. I'll even make changes to the code of the course, and then I'll always put the student's name in there and say, like, "Thank you so much, student Bob or whatever, for this feedback, because it's making the course better." So yeah.
So I think that it's important, as you said, and also if you have a course that it's working, why it should don't work the day after. So it's really strange. So if you start getting a lot of messages one day, maybe you just wake up, get a coffee, I don't know, and then you just see a whole of messages.
Nothing to do.
Maybe you can sniff that there's nothing wrong with something else, because otherwise it should not work.
It's never happened.
Yeah,
it's weirdly, that's never, even on New Year's Eve at 11 p.m., 1 hour before midnight of New Year's Eve, I was having a chat with a student in our Discord team, because he was talking about he was talking about something he was doing at work with Docker, and it was and then he realized that it was like an hour to midnight in my time zone or something, and he apologized. But I was like, you know what, I'm sitting here just hanging out, like, we were home alone. It's COVID. I'm not at a party. So yeah, no, I mean, all hours, all days, like it could be 3 a.m, it could be any time of day. Yeah.
I always say that if you want to talk about Docker, you can also wake me up at 4 a.m. I don't know, but this is what passion is, in my opinion, because it's something that you always want to talk about, even if it's some strange hours, some strange times. So really, thank you, Bret, for being here. It has been really an honor to have you here, and say this for real, because it was one of the reasons why I also started my interviews. Now I can say this. I was really hoping inside myself that maybe one day I could have you here. So thank you for making my dream real, because thank you for this. Would you like to say something before we leave to maybe some new developers that maybe would like to get started with Docker? What should they do? Apart of just following you.
So sure, I can. So I get lots of questions from new developers, right? So because I'm lucky enough to have somewhere between 100 and 200 people starting my courses every day. So there's a huge community around this. You don't necessarily even have to buy the courses, because if you're just getting started, obviously there's tons of free stuff on the internet. Like you having a YouTube channel, I have a YouTube channel. You can do that. You can go there, bret.live, BRET.live. I have a chat community. If you've ever heard of Discord chat, I have both a Slack chat community and a Discord chat community. But Discord is kind of the fun place to hang out. It's got some neat community features. So there's a lot of us over there. You can get that at devops.fan. So DEVOPS.FAN, devops.fan. And that's free. So you can join that community. And then if you are interested in my courses or any of my other resources, because I have tons of open source examples, I have videos from conferences. I've done dozens of conference videos. And all of that you can find over my website, including coupons for the courses at bretfisher.com, at BRETFISHER.com. So those are the things, and come hang out with us, because we're having fun. We're hanging out every day, chatting about DevOps.
Yeah, and I'll be there. I think that I'm already there. And yeah, and please consider buying these very, in my opinion, very gold courses. In my opinion, because it has been, as you said, it required months of of work for you. So consider that. We put a lot of links there in the description in the video. Yeah, thank you again, Bret, for being here. I'm looking forward. If you want to do anything you want related to Docker, you can wake me up even at 3 a.m. You can say, I have this idea. I'm up for that at any time you want.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Yeah.
Sure.
Hope to see you soon.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll see you on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
Ciao.
you, Bret.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.